Hey, what up, everybody out there in the YouTube internet world? Wanted to come in, make another video. This time I'm not driving, so I'm going to do it from my house. I just want to address all of the chatter about Israel, about the conflict with Iran, and everything that's going on. All this whole subject, I feel like, is very convoluted, and I feel like it's very manipulative. Meaning, a lot of people are having to take sides, and I notice this with just about every issue that swirls around. Is they want you to pick sides. Whether it's you're for Trump, anti-Trump, whether you're if you're a conservative, you got to be against the liberals. That there's right now we're being positioned into such a divided mindset that I really wanted to expose deeper. I've made a lot of Facebook posts about this, but I wanted to make a video that really illustrates it as best as I can. And it really goes back to what I see throughout history is that there is a philosophy called the Hegelian Dialectic that has been used for centuries. And what it essentially is that if you're on the outside of a conflict, you want everybody to pick sides where they're not drawing attention to you. So let's just say, you're I wanted to create a conflict between two people. I'm going to basically create rhetoric or create rumors or propaganda, whatever it is, so that people will take either the side of one person or the other person, but I'm on the sidelines on the outside looking in. And I want out of that fight, I want to create a scenario that benefits me, but nobody really notices me. They just notice the conflict. And that's what I've noticed mostly about what I see happening in the world right now is that the internet has created a lot more information, but it also is a way to create a lot more divisiveness and a lot more type of manipulative, way to group people into different groups to oppose each other. So the way I see it with the Hegelian dialectic, with this particular philosophy that creates outcomes that benefit only a certain group of people, I'm just going to give you a couple things that has to do with Israel right now. So a lot of people right now are basically seeing Israel as the main culprit. They like to, the nation state of Israel is basically the boogeyman right now, the chosen boogeyman. I would go as far as to tell you that that's by design. Okay, just like in other countries, America is being painted as the boogeyman, right? Or, whatever it is, right? It's depending on how the propaganda is shaped, it could be Russia, it could be this or that. The main point I want to drive in is the people that use the Hegelian dialectic, they don't represent countries. They use countries and they use governments to further their agenda. They sit on the sideline while two countries battle it out, okay? And World War One, World War Two were the greatest examples of this. And then now we're seeing a current conflict right now with America and Israel versus Iran. This is another way that they are manipulating. And who are they? Who am I talking about? I am talking about these families that hold the majority of power in the world. I'm not talking about the ones that have the highest net worth or anything like that. I'm talking about the ones that actually hold power. And so correctly, a lot of people are identifying, the Zionist aspect of it. But really, they're just one stream of these particular families. And so what I would trace it all the way back to, okay, is these are the blue bloods. These are the ones that have held power for a very long time, okay? And what they do is they have preserved their bloodlines. They have, I believe you could trace them all the way back to a lot of the dynastic families, especially in modern history. They've really come more to power. But really what they did is they rose to power through their occult practices, okay? And they've held power from ancient times. And I do believe that they probably carry some form of, bloodline from the Nephilim. Okay. So if you go back pre-flood, what you're going to find is that the way the world was broken up is that you had the Watchers, the fallen angels is what many Christians would call it, but they essentially procreated and created these Nephilim beings who were their princes, who they ruled through. But these Watchers would literally be in temples, and people would come to worship them, and they would rule through their offspring. In Greek mythology, it was the Titans, right? Every single one of these old countries, they have a different take on the story, but it's essentially the same exact concept all throughout human history. And that's essentially, these bloodlines were kept alive through occult mystery schools. And they embed themselves within institutions, these mystery schools. Like, for instance, a very common one that's been more exposed recently is Freemasonry. Okay. A lot of people realize that Freemasonry is a secret society, and it's made up of a lot of normal people and many Christians. But at the higher levels, there is an actual like subset that understand the secret occult truths that have been passed down over time. Somebody who's really dove deep on this is an author by Gary. His name is Gary Wayne. He's written several books on this. He really comes at it from a scholarly level. I would recommend anybody reading his books or listening to certain podcasts where he talks about this, because there is evidence to all this. I'm not going to get into all that on this. That's not, I'm just going to give you an overview and point you in the direction so that hopefully you won't become manipulated, because that's what I see. Everyone gets into their tribe and they get manipulated. And so these families over time have literally done this whole entire the same scenario over and over again, because the psyche of people has not changed. Okay, people are very tribal. They're very orientated to come together. Good versus evil type situation. You got to have they need inside their mind the bad guy to be pointed out, and they need the good side to be painted in that sort of way. And you see this kind of programming done through movies, all sorts of different stuff. And really, it's not biblical, because at the end of the day, the good guy in the Bible, okay, there's only one good guy, and that's God, okay? And then everybody else, we're almost irrelevant, okay? None of us are good. Not one is good, is what it says. Even when Yeshua showed up to Joshua, and Joshua was like, "Whose side are you on?" He's like, "I'm not on either." He's like, whose side are you on? That's the real question. Are you going to be on God's side, or are you going to not be on his side? So really, you have to understand that when we break all this down, that this is what's going on. We're dealing with a programming. And so with that out of the way, I really wanted to hit on Israel and why Israel is so much in the forefront right now, okay? And this is what I see going on, okay? Like we just saw, Joe Kent resigned, and he pointed towards officials in Israel manipulating the decisions of Trump and the American government to go to war against Iran. I do believe that is true. I believe, but it's not the government of Israel and the Jewish people are doing this. It is a faction within the Israeli government. If you go and you look at the history of how the nation state of Israel was created, okay, the Rothschild family was very, very relevant in the creation of the nation state of Israel. Okay, is there actually Jewish people that are a part of this, and is there a fulfillment of prophecy as a part of this? I do believe that is true, but at the same exact time, I also recognize that the occult mystery schools and these families, they have their own agenda. So they don't care about Israel, okay? They have no allegiance to any country, the Rothschild family, that is. So the Epstein files showed you this. Epstein did not represent a government. He didn't represent an agency. He represented the Rothschild family. And here in America, okay, the Rothschilds are not quite as prevalent as other families that are in that same stream these ancient bloodlines with these mystery schools. Okay, the Rockefellers are one of the most prevalent ones. And really, if you look at what is going on here, is they control very often. What I see is the root to their manipulative tactics very often is the banking system. Okay, and this is where the Zionist, bankers, come up a lot amongst conspiracy world, and for a good reason, because you really need to understand, like, who is behind the Federal Reserve. Okay, we're in over $30 trillion in debt here in America. And to whom are we in debt to? Nobody even asked that question. Okay, we're indebted to our system of credit, which is issued by the Federal Reserve, which is organized by a private bank. Are they beholden to certain, government bureaucracies and stuff? Yes, they are. But at the end of the day, they are the issuer, okay, of our system of credit. And what I see going on here is that at the end of the day, this is not about the Rothschild family. They're Israel and Rockefeller is America. And no, what it is they're protecting their banking system, which is the petrodollar. And they know how to manipulate Trump, because Trump does not want the economy to crash. And he knows that until there's a solution, I don't even know what he knows, but I'm just assuming that if he really had the best intentions for America, is that you get rid of the Federal Reserve, that we would move to a different system of credit. And maybe he's trying to do that. I mean, I hope so. I don't really have a lot of faith in him, because I feel like he is, whenever you stick up for and you cover for, sexual predators and people that abuse children, I'm sorry, you lost me in my book. So that's what I see going on. What I see is that these families want to protect their stronghold, which is their system of credit, the central banking system, okay? And so they will use the American military, they will use whatever government, necessary to manipulate and to control, okay, the geopolitics of the world. So without understanding what I just said, that there's literally people behind the scenes that are doing all these manipulative tactics, it doesn't make sense what a lot of America is doing by going after Venezuela, without going after Iran, okay? Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that brings every little puzzle piece together. You would not make all these moves. It's not about drug cartels necessarily. It's not about, the Iranian government persecuting their people. These are all just ways to basically appease the public and, give them justification for what they're doing. For whatever reason, they don't want to tell them the truth, which is, if you don't protect the American dollar, we're all going to be screwed, because we're indebted, to this system. And so at some point, I do believe they're probably going to collapse the entire system, and that may be very soon, to benefit them. And they will usually reorder it through a world war. And I believe that's probably what is in play right now, is they're probably trying to manufacture some kind of world war. They do this through all sorts of covert tactics. Okay, these people are masters at this. They've been doing this for a long time. Okay, they know how to manipulate all sorts of different people. Okay, and if you think Trump can't be manipulated, I don't know what to tell you. You're just, either you don't want to look at the Epstein files, you don't want to see what's really in your face. Even before the Epstein files were released, a lot of this stuff was already widely known. It's not really a big mystery. So you have these factions within government that are able to make these moves. So this whole entire controversy with Iran, this whole thing where everybody's focusing on Israel, what is it? It's about the banking cartels that is behind it all. They're the deep state of Israel. The banking cartel is the deep state of America, okay? They're the deep state within the CIA. And I believe that this stuff goes way deeper than people even realize. And I think when they do their alien disclosure, you're going to see probably how crazy and how deep this really goes, because I believe the end goal to these families is to usher in their Messiah, who is going to be Antichrist. Okay, that is their goal. So like I said, I believe that they believe, and it's probably true, that their bloodlines of these families go all the way back to the Nephilim, to the original Nephilim, to the Watchers. This is who they are beholden to. And the devil is obviously chief amongst all the fallen cherub, the devil, what we call him, right? Um, so these beings, this is how they do. They manipulate things. But at the end of the day, even though they have power through the money system, they don't have the final say. Okay, God has the final say, and so I've always believed that's one of the reasons a lot of um, like conspiracy theorists online, they put a lot of faith. They understand everything I just said about these families and how they manipulate through banking and through corporations, and they're not beholden to countries and so on and so forth. They understand kind of how all this works, this whole network, this whole web, that's created throughout the world. But they don't understand is that God has the final say. So they're still on God's timeline. Okay. So don't get me wrong. I don't have, some kind of like overwhelming, faith in that these people are all powerful. They're not all powerful. Okay. But are they permitted, okay, by our complacency, by us being divided and not really understanding who the real enemy is, okay? Are they able to gain power? Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I hope this brings some clarity to it all. Like I said, there's a lot of details that I'm not going to even try to cover in like some little short little YouTube video, but I hope you understand that everybody's being manipulated right now, okay? The level of propaganda is pretty wild. You need to understand, you need to look at what is the root behind all of these different moves and issues and understand that this is not a battle between different governments and whatnot. And maybe in a future time I will get more into who really Israel is and what my belief is according to scripture, on who I think Israel like truly actually is. It's not a government. I can tell you that right now. Um, are there real Israelites in the land of Israel? Yes. Is there biblical prophecy that has been partly fulfilled with some of this? Yes, I believe it has. But that has definitely blinded a lot of people from understanding who manipulates the government of Israel. And there is definitely just just look it up. Do some research. The Rothschild family and the creation of Israel. Okay, it's not. These are facts. Okay, so it's not something I concocted. So with all that said, I hope you understand that these days are evil. We need to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. We need to be very understanding and not caught away with every little theory and whatnot. And really, we need to go back. I believe to stripping away from all of the propaganda that's in the church too. Okay, I'm not just talking about propaganda from social media or the news and stuff. The church itself, okay, these families have infiltrated the Church of America, the church all worldwide. Okay, guaranteed. They are manipulating even well-intended people, okay, to do their bidding, to position people the way they want them to be positioned. And I believe they've done this pretty masterfully with Trump, and I believe they've done this pretty masterfully with Israel. So you need to really take a long look at where you're at. Where is your allegiance to? Okay, and where your heart lies with all this. So with all that said, I hope this blessed you. God bless. Have a good day.